And welcome back to this overview of what's new with the SAS MAS Scorer version 1.2 and version 1.3. Let's get right into it. Here, I've opened up the changelog of all the changes because there is so much new stuff that I might even miss something in this video. So everything in detail is linked down in the description. Let's get into the MAS Scorer. Of course, we still need to authenticate with SAS Wire as ever. So let me quickly sign in here and authorize the access. And now the first change you might already see on this main page here. First up, you can now filter by type for models and decision for easier indication of what you are interested in. And also the columns in here have been updated. There's fewer of them, but more precise on what people are actually interested in. Next up, we are going to look into a decision. And here we have a couple of new things. First up, we now pull out the specific version that was published. And the deep link reflects that, especially with SAS Model Manager, where you're actually taken to that specific decision. Next, let's move into the actual execution part of a step, where now the single execution has a new feature where we can run one example. And if it's executing successfully, we can save it as a scenario back to the decision. So let me go to this decision in intelligent decisioning. As you can see, there's currently no scenarios defined here. So now we can go in and say save as scenario. We then can give this scenario a name. We can give it optionally a description, best test ever. Then we can browse through SAS content where we want to store this scenario test. I'm just going to select my folder. You can, of course, also click into the folders and do wherever you want to put it. And then you can specify into which SAS library the output should be saved. So for example, you can switch that over to SAS user or whatever makes sense for your environment. And then we hit save scenario. And then once we are back in intelligent decisioning, hit refresh. Now we have our scenario in here. And if we go in, we see public, my folder, best test ever. We have our input variable and our expected output that we saw down here as well. So this really one-to-one takes what you have built here and puts it into intelligent decisioning for testing. Then we also have another improvement on this page where we can go in, go to the View API call page, and where before we only had Python and JavaScript, we now also have SAS available for us here. So it generates the proc HTTP and the proc JSON code to generate the request. And for all three of them, we now also have parallel execution mode. For the SAS one, this is based on proc DS2, where you can then score across a whole data set in parallel against MAS, vastly improving the performance of your scoring runs. Awesome feature. Hope you check it out and make great use of it. If we go back and go into a step again, wait, let me go here and then go to build UI, which is something we looked at last time. We have improved a lot of the capabilities here as well. So what we can do now is if we switch it from a number input to a dropdown, you can specify options that have a label. So we could, instead of inputting the actual cylinders, we could have something like a V8 and we put 8 cylinders in there. Or we could have like a V12 and then we input the value 12, but make it more bespoke for the user. And similarly on the output, previously you kind of had to live with the gauge visualization as it was. You can now add color steps to the gauges, and also if you use a badge, you can now also add a mapping in here. So we could say something like a 6 as an input gets remapped to, or what did we have? We had a V12, I believe, in there. So we would get 12 cylinders back, and then we mapped that to very fast car as an example. Then we're going to save that. And now if we select our v12, hit execute, we now get this display of very fast car. So you can much more flexibly build out bespoke UIs in here that are useful to people and make use of. Now, as the final piece, we are going back into our car decision, going back into our execute step. And now we are switching into the parallel. I renamed it from batch to parallel because you're really scoring multiple rows in parallel. What we're going to do now is do a CSV scoring. Just gonna upload a small data set, map a column here, and then we're gonna run that scoring. And now we can save this scoring result into SAS through a simple button click. We have to select into which library we want to put it, and also we can change the name. And then we can also specify if we only want to keep it in memory or also have it saved onto disk. We hit upload and it's done. And now let's go back into the SAS Data Explorer, and I'm gonna hit refresh here for my in-memory tables. And now we can see our car's execute results. You will note it adds some special string, so it ensures it doesn't overwrite the table by accident for you. And then if we look at the sample data, you will see we get the row from your input data set. You get the status, you get the input and the output column in here. You get the runtime in milliseconds for each request. If there was an error, you get the error code in here. And you get the deep link for the source, in this case a decision, and its version in here as well. That's it for updates this time. I hope you check out the mass scoring application. It's really a fun application for me to build. Keep the feedback coming so I can improve it for you all. See you next time. Bye bye.